Hello. I am submitting my disposition self-assessment survey as well as my video submission, and I'm going to be reading the questions and providing answers. So here I go. What dispositions do you possess that you think will make you a successful teacher? Well, I am already a teacher. This is actually my first year. I'm a first grade teacher. I've been in education for many years and I've worked my way up the ladder. So I would have to say that this is something that I've always felt is part of me, but advocacy is something that is very important for me. I feel like that's my strongest one. The area in the paper that spoke to me was taking time to understand student issues and concerns, assisting students in finding resolutions to their problems, and sincerely getting to know the students' interests and needs in their context. So I feel that those three areas are important when you're pushing to advocate for a student that needs that extra support. If they need an IEP, if they need speech, if they need any type of services, if they need something extra to help with their learning progress. I feel that being very advocate for them and speaking up, listening, but also speaking up for them is very important when it comes to education. Number two, what dispositions do you need to work on before you enter the classroom? As a first year teacher, well, this year, before I became a teacher, I had to really work on my high expectation issue. I always have this huge expectation that, all my students are going to be readers and they're going to be amazing and I'm not going to have to do much and it's just going to be easy. And yeah, no, it's not. So I've had to really kind of tone that area down in my world. One area, actually a couple areas in the paper that I did need to work on were monitoring, assessing in real time, and changing practice almost as quickly. So I tend to assess sometimes and then put it off for a couple of days, where I do need to make sure that those students that do need that help, all students actually, when I am assessing them, to change everything immediately when it comes to their goals. Knowing students and their interests and abilities. I do that already. I talk to my students daily. My students, if you ever talk to them, they will tell you Mrs. Courtwright is constantly asking us questions. She's always wanting to know what's going on. So I'm good at that. And then communicating expectations positively through a variety of methods. That's an area I definitely need to work on. I tend to say in my head, oh, this is what I need to do with this student. But then I don't sit the student down and tell them, hey, this is our goal for the week. This is what we need to do. So that's definitely an area that I am working on as a first year teacher. Number three, how do the dispositions demonstrate your ability to understand other culture, genders, and learning differences to build stronger relationships with student and families? And how do potential biases affect teaching? So this area, I have major respect for any type of diversity when it comes to race, gender, any type of culture, when it comes to them, those types of diverse students being in the classroom. I know that probably the most important, and it's stated in the paper, that you just definitely need to know the backgrounds and the cultures of all of your students. Doesn't matter what race, it doesn't matter what gender, doesn't matter what ethnicity, it doesn't matter. You have to know their background, you have to know their culture, you have to know their background, because it definitely helps your teaching style and how they learn. Another one was to not tolerate or minimize inappropriate behavior when observed, and challenging students to report inappropriate behavior. We talk about this all the time in my class about how we treat each other equally, the same. We are all a family in my class. That is something that I implement daily into my students' heads, and we have rules and beautiful quotes in my classroom that help all the students. We celebrate everything in my classroom. We don't just celebrate certain things, we celebrate everything. So, and I feel that when it comes to the bias question, how do potential bias affects teaching? I think it just depends on how you were raised and how you were brought up. I was not raised to do any of that. So I think sometimes if you have a bias towards a student who is a different nationality or a different race or a different gender, maybe that could be a hard thing for you to work with. But I love all my students. I have so many different diverse students in my classroom that they are all just amazing, beautiful children. So for me personally, this disposition is not an issue for me because I am very equal with all of my students. So last one, how do you anticipate using feedback from your annual performance evaluations, observations, and data on student performance to adjust your dispositions and teaching practices to benefit learning? So I actually have had 2 observations already, one by my assistant principal, one by my principal. I actually had a superintendent walk through my classroom the other day and give me a thank you card, which blew me away. As being a first-year teacher, I was not expecting that. For her praise to be so on top. But I will say that I did write that I have already had 2 observations as well as done 2 different assessments since August. I have used my observation notes and support from my admin to help guide my students in the direction that they need to go. I have my lows. They need the extra love and support. And I have my highs that need the extra work so that they do not get bored. I have made sure that I have made sure with my assessments, to adjust my lesson plans and to add different ways of teaching to help benefit those students. So luckily my admin gave me a lot of feedback after my observations so that I can use that feedback to go into the classroom and pull those groups of kids and work with them to get them out of the bubble that we call it at our school, of the kids that need to get out of the bubble and to progress and move forward. So I take everything with a grain of salt. So usually comments don't bother me. But sometimes if they're ones that I feel that, I know I can do better, I tend to get a little upset about it. But lately, I have been getting some wonderful feedback from my administration. So it has helped to also get their help on how to guide my students since it is my first year. So thank you. And that is all.